Are you playing Among Us? We're recording, Tim.
It's so good!
Oh.
Hey all you cool cats and kittens, welcome to question 3 of our series, Asking for a Friend, where we tackle hard questions that might be uncomfortable to ask. Tonight's hard question comes from the age-old dilemma, how are we called to live as Christians? Tonight, we're going to narrow that question down a little to how are we as Christians called to engage culture and society. Now, we've all heard the saying, we're called to be in the world, but not of it. It's not a tough one to understand on the surface, and while it's not technically a Bible verse, it's a pretty important calling on us as Christians. And while it might not be hard to understand on the surface, it can be really hard to figure out what that practically looks like. The saying comes from a handful of different passages, and tonight in your groups, you'll get a chance to read a few of them. But right now, I want to read one from Matthew. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34 to 37. Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. This is Jesus talking, by the way. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to make man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. This passage is often seen as tough and harsh, even a little confusing. Elsewhere in Scripture, Jesus says that we're supposed to honor our father and mother. But here, he says we should hate them, that they will be our enemy. But I think the key here that will help us understand this calling and this passage is in verse 37. It says, anyone who loves their father and mother more than me. It's not about not loving them. It's about how you prioritize them. Loving them more than God, more than Jesus. That's the issue. And that's true too of how we're supposed to live in this world. It's obvious that God doesn't want us to hate the world, the earth. He created it. He saw that it was good. What makes it not good is sin. What makes it something that we're not to be of is sin. God is not trying to tell us that we belong in heaven more than we do here, but that we need to make certain that we keep our distance from the effects of sin in our culture, in our community, even in churches and in our own homes. What's difficult about this teaching is figuring out how we live in this balance of living here and being a part of this world, but not being of it, being influenced by it or prioritizing it. We know that putting God first in all things is key. We know that we are to seek living holy and pure lives. But we also know that we are stuck in a sin-filled world, yet also called to go into this world to share the good news. So does that mean we should only interact enough to speak into the world? How do we speak to people that we don't know, or that don't know us? Tonight we're going to take a look at 3 different biblical examples of how we should interact with culture. The first is Joseph, when interacting with Potiphar's wife. When tempted and presented with sin, how did he respond? How can that be an example for us? The second is Daniel, living in Babylon as an exile. When the whole city worshipped false gods, even Israelites in captivity, and when ordered not to worship the God, how does Daniel respond? How is that different from Joseph? And how can that be an example for us? And third, Jesus, because we can't not look at Jesus as an example. How does he interact with culture, with non-believers, with sinners? How can that be an example for us? Now go away, read some books, enjoy your conversations tonight on tonight's hard question, how are we called to engage culture? What does it mean to be in the world, but not of it?